We were so little back then. And yet you managed to take the pieces they left behind, add new ones to the mix, and make me whole again. Summer Fantasies. Chapter 1. Worlds Inside of Worlds. The world has always been too loud for me, not just in terms of sound, but in terms of sight. Most people look at a cracked sidewalk and see a trip hazard. I see a jagged canyon where tiny crystalline civilizations are currently at war over the last drop of rainwater. I was 6 years old when I first realized my brain didn't have a filter. I was sitting at the dinner table, staring at a pea on my plate. To my mother, it was a vegetable I was refusing to eat. To me, it was a sentient emerald planet mourning its lost solar system. "Summer, eat your dinner," my mother snapped. Her voice was like a rusted pair of scissors cutting through the silk of my vision. "But it's lonely," I whispered, my eyes wide. "The great green sphere is sending out a distress signal. If I eat it, the signal stops, and the rescue ships will never find it." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! Always with the stories, the whispering, the staring into space. You're a freak, Summer. Why can't you be like your brother?" My brother, Leo, was 2 years older and perfectly, boringly normal. He played with trucks by pushing them on the carpet. He didn't see the trucks as dragons breathing diesel fire. He was the golden child. I was the burden. The narration started then. The compulsion I couldn't stop. The giant of the north scowled, his thunder voice shaking the foundations of the Emerald Palace. I began to recite, my voice rhythmic and haunting. The little princess knew that one more word would mean the end of the world, yet the stories lived in her lungs like birds trying to escape a cage. "Shut up!" my mother shrieked. "Let her finish." The voice came from the doorway. It was Uncle Roy, my mother's cousin, a man with kind eyes and a messy beard that always smelled like old books and peppermint. He was a psychologist, but to me, he was the only person who spoke my language. He'd often go out of his way to visit us. He never downright stated it, but years later I realized that he did it because he was worried about me. He walked over, ignored my parents' indignant glares, and pulled up a chair right next to mine. He looked at me with the intensity of a scholar studying a sacred text. "Go on, Summer," he said softly. "What happened to the birds in the cage?" I felt the tension drain out of me. My parents were fuming in the background, but they didn't matter. Uncle Roy was listening. "They turned into ink," I said, my voice gaining strength. "They flew out of her mouth and painted the sky black so the princess could hide from the giant." "Beautiful," Roy whispered. "Roy, you're encouraging this madness," my father growled. "She needs discipline, not an audience." Uncle Roy didn't even look back at him. "Shut up," he said, his voice flat and dangerous. "I want to hear the rest." That was the first time I felt the warmth of being protected. In that moment, the freak became the storyteller. Chapter 2. The Replacement. By the time I was 8, the gap between me and my family had become a chasm. My parents didn't even try to hide it anymore. Leo got the new bike. I got the lectures. Leo got the hugs. I got the episodes that ended with me locked in my room because my narrations embarrassed them. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday. I had narrated a 15-minute epic about a clockmaker who stole time from children's dreams. My mother had reached her limit and shook me hard. Uncle Roy arrived 10 minutes later. He was livid. But more than that, he brought papers. "You have 2 choices," Roy told them, his voice trembling with a cold, professional fury. "Either you agree to let me become Summer's legal guardian, or I call Child Protective Services and show them the journals I've kept of how you treat her. The neglect, the verbal abuse, the clear favoritism, which will it be?" My mother looked at my father. There was no hesitation, no tears, only a sense of relief that the broken child was someone else's problem now. "Take her," my father said. I packed my bags that night. I was depressed, yes. There is a specific kind of ache that comes with knowing your creators find you defective. But as I walked into Uncle Roy's house, a place filled with soft rugs, warm yellow lights, and a room just for me, the ache began to dull. "Summer," Roy said, kneeling to my height. "In this house, the stories are the guest of honor." But even with Roy, I felt like a puzzle piece from the wrong box. Until I met Peter. Chapter 3. The Logic to My Magic. Roy took me to his office one Saturday. I have a few last-minute meetings with patients, Summer. Why don't you wait in the lounge? There are books and things you can play with. As soon as we're done, I'll take you somewhere fun, okay? I wandered the halls, my mind already drifting. The beige carpet was turning into a desert of toasted sand. I was a nomad, searching for an oasis. I was pretending to dig, using a plastic spoon as a shovel. "That's a rug," a voice said. "It's polyester or something like that. I don't think a spoon is going to get you through it." I snapped out of it. Sitting on a bench was a boy my age. He was dressed in a button-down shirt tucked neatly into navy slacks. He held a clipboard and a mechanical pencil. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated pragmatism. "It's sand," I insisted. "And there are scorpions made of glass hiding under the water cooler." He looked at the cooler, then back at me, then blinked a few times, his head tilted to the side, the way I had seen puppies do when they're confused. He didn't seem to be judging me, more like trying to process my completely random musings. Suddenly, the itch started. A new story was clawing at the back of my throat. I couldn't stop it. I sat on the floor and began to narrate. "The nomad found a boy of stone," I whispered. "A boy who saw the world as rigid, unmoving. He didn't see the magic spirits floating all over. I assumed he'd laugh, that he'd walk away, that he'd call me a freak. Instead, I heard the scritch-scratch of a pencil. I looked up. Peter was writing, fast. His brow was furrowed in deep concentration. He looked back at me, expectant. My mouth just stayed open. My turn to be confused. "Go on," he said, noticing my confusion. "What did the magic spirits look like?" "Like shapes," I said, caught off guard. "But not the simple ones. More like—" I didn't know the word. My 6-year-old's vocabulary could only sustain my storytelling so far. I began to draw an abstract shape in the air using my hands, adding little shakes from the wrists as if trying to add detail to my illustration. "Like squibbly lines?" he asked. I shrugged, never having heard the word squibbly before. Makes sense," he said. "But I might need to do some polishing after." We stayed there for an hour, me narrating, him documenting. When Roy found us, his face lit up in fascination. Peter handed the clipboard to Roy. One half of the page had my unfiltered speeches. The notes were messy bullet points of my wild imagery. The other one had a clean, revised version. "This is—" Roy breathed. "Peter, this is amazing work." "Her ideas were a bit confusing at first," Peter said, standing up and dusting off his pants. "But they reminded me of that book on post-mortem poetry that you showed me last time." "Postmodern," Roy corrected. "That one," Peter continued. "So I just reworded some parts and added some lines of my own to make it more complete." "This is progress beyond anything we've seen in previous sessions," Roy whispered to Peter's bewildered parents later. "Not to mention the resulting text is— well, it could give professionals a run for their money." Apparently, Peter's mind worked in the complete opposite way mine did. While I relied too much on my imagination, he, from a very early age, had completely brushed off his and had learned to rely on cold, hard logic, apparently skipping an entire stage of his own mental development. "I think your son and my niece have a type of complementary effect on each other, the kind that we, as adults, cannot replicate, which is why I wanted to run a couple of ideas by you." That was the day the Pure Soul Collection was born. We started having play dates, twice a week, sometimes in my house, sometimes in his. Nothing out of the ordinary, just us hanging out together. Except that whenever I had one of my sudden narrative bursts, Peter would use the time to write everything down and fill in the gaps, using the imagination that had seemed dormant before. During those moments, we were more than just kids playing. We were a factory. I provided the raw, chaotic energy of hyperphantasia. Peter provided the technique and structure. The adults around us had so much faith in what we were accomplishing that they had agreed to publish our writings under pseudonyms. I was Calliope Brigid, he was Apollo Terminus. The profits, as planned by them, would go straight into trust funds in our respective names. "What's a trust fund?" I asked Peter one day, the two of us having overheard their conversations. "It's like that piggy bank you have in your room," he answered. Only, it's other people who fill it up for us and we can't break it until we're adults. We were drawing in the same large piece of paper. A joint exercise, my uncle had called it. Something about us learning how to share our space with each other. I drew my old house. I drew my parents and Leo inside, laughing. "You forgot to draw yourself," said Peter. "I'm here," I responded, pointing at the other end of the paper. I'd drawn myself a mile away, a tiny stick figure in the corner of the page, alone, expressionless. Peter watched me. He picked up a black crayon, then drew a massive, fortress-like structure right next to the stick figure Summer. Finally, he added a stick figure Peter standing at the gate. "Why did you do that?" I asked, confused. "If they can replace you, doesn't that mean you can replace them too?" He asked with that certainty children have on what they say, even if they don't actually know it to be true. I looked at the drawing. For the first time, the abandonment didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a vacancy. And Peter was moving in. Chapter 4. The Shield. High school was supposed to be my normal phase. I had spent years in specialized schools, learning how to ground myself. It took some insistence, but I managed to convince my uncle to enroll me in a regular place, so as to prove to myself that I could experience a routine without training wheels. I had friends now, girls who liked lip gloss and talking about boys. I kept my episodes hidden, tucked away from my sessions with Peter. But the brain doesn't always follow the schedule. I was standing in the hallway, laughing at a joke, when the colors started to bleed. The lockers were slowly transforming from metal into the ribs of a dying whale. The hallway was filling with water. I could feel the pressure in my ears. The narration was rising like a tide. The whale groaned, its iron bones creaking under the weight of the secrets it swallowed. My breath hitched. My friends were looking at me. "Summer? You okay? You look pale." I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, the whale would come out. I was going to be the freak again. Everything I had built the normal girl was about to shatter. Suddenly, a hand, firm, warm, and familiar, clamped onto mine. "Excuse us," a voice said. It was Peter. He had grown tall, his features sharp and handsome in a way that felt like a mathematical equation for attractive. He pulled me through the crowd, his grip like an anchor. He led me to the empty gym. He pushed me into the corner of the basketball court and stood directly in front of me, shielding me from the door. "Go on," he commanded. "Tell me everything. They won't hear you if you keep your voice low." I let it out. The whale, the iron ribs, the sea of secrets. I poured it all into him. No pencil this time, no notepad. He just watched my eyes, his presence a solid wall of reality that kept the hallucination from consuming me. "They are safe now, the secrets. No one will bother them," I finished, my voice trembling. I leaned on him, unusually tired from the effort of holding back. Suddenly, the gym door swung open. A teacher stood there, eyes wide. Behind him, my friends were peeking in. From their perspective, the school's most mysterious, logical boy was pinned against the wall with the quiet girl in a dark corner. "Detention," the teacher barked. "Both of you." As we walked out, my friends giggled. "Summer! We really thought you were in trouble or something. We didn't know you and Peter were, like that." Peter didn't correct them. He didn't even look at them. He just kept his hand on the small of my back, guiding me forward. "Let them believe it," he whispered. "It's a logical cover story for why we spend so much time together." "Just a cover story?" I asked, unable to hide my disappointment. He stopped walking. For the first time in years, I could see the expression of the boy who wasn't sure how to process what he had just heard. I mean, he began, I would like for it to be true. Just, I know I'm supposed to ask first, and I don't know how to." I smiled, the warmth of my blushing face slowly creeping up. "The way that you did just now, I think it counts perfectly." I took his hand. My unspoken answer to his unspoken question. That was all we needed. Chapter 5. The Pure Soul Revolution. The transition from weird kids with a hobby to literary sensations happened faster than my brain could narrate. By our senior year, the Pure Soul collection went beyond just a trust fund project. It was a global phenomenon. Under our pseudonyms, we had published 12 volumes. Critics called it a symphony of chaos and order. Children who felt different saw themselves in my wild metaphors. Adults who felt lost found comfort in Peter's grounding translations. When we turned 21, we decided to step out of the shadows. The launch event for the final volume was held at a massive library in the city. Thousands of people showed up. "Are you ready?" Peter asked, adjusting his cufflinks. He was now a data scientist by trade, but his true career was still being the keeper of my mind. "The curtains are like heavy eyelids," I whispered, feeling the familiar hum of an episode. "They want to blink and reveal the soul of the world." Peter took my hand. "They will open in approximately 45 seconds because the stage manager just signaled. And when they do, you are going to tell them exactly who you are." We stepped out. The flashbulbs were like lightning strikes, but they didn't hurt. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was hiding. "My name is Summer Fields," I told the microphone, my voice clear. I had legally changed my name years ago. Summer Parish was a girl who was a burden. Summer Fields was a woman who owned the horizon. I have hyperphantasia. And this is Peter, the man who taught me that my world wasn't broken, it was just waiting to be built upon. The standing ovation lasted for 10 minutes. Our story went viral. We were symbols of neurodivergent triumph. Chapter 6. The Ghost of the Parish. Success brings many things: money, fame, and, unfortunately, the people who tossed you away like trash when you were useless. A week after the reveal, I was at Uncle Roy's house. He was still my heart, my real father in every way that counted. We were having tea when the doorbell rang. Roy looked at the security camera and his face went cold. "Summer, stay here." I didn't stay. I followed him to the door. Standing on the porch were two people I barely recognized. They looked older, tired, and remarkably ordinary. My mother was wearing a cheap floral dress. My father was fidgeting with his car keys. "Summer!" my mother gasped, her eyes immediately welling with practiced tears. "Oh, our sweet girl. We saw you on the news. We were so proud. We always knew you were special." I looked at her. I waited for the surge of anger, or perhaps the old ache of wanting their love. But there was nothing. My brain, usually so full of imagery, saw them in stark, clinical detail. Long gone were the angry, intimidating giants they had represented in the past. They were just people who had made a bad investment and were now looking for a payout. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" I asked quietly. My father blanched. "Summer, don't be like that. We're your parents. We made some mistakes, sure. We were young. We didn't understand your condition. But blood is blood." "That's funny," a voice interrupted from behind me. Peter stepped forward, his presence as cold and sharp as an ice flow. "Because, according to the legal documents signed over a decade ago, you terminated your parental rights. Biologically, you share DNA. Legally and socially, you are strangers." "You stay out of this!" my mother snapped at Peter. "This is a family matter." "He is my family," I said, stepping closer to Peter. I felt his hand rest on my shoulder, the same anchor that had held me in the school gym and many similar adversities. "Leo is your family. How is he, by the way?" They flinched. The news about Leo had already reached me. I didn't even have to ask for them. The normal child had moved to London years ago, married a woman who hated them, and hadn't answered their calls in 3 years. He had no interest in supporting two people who had spent his childhood comparing him to a freak. "Leo is busy," my father muttered. "But Summer, we're struggling. The house needs repairs, and your mother's health isn't what it used to be. Surely, with all the money from those books." "The money is in a trust," Peter said with a ghost of a smirk, "managed by a very strict person. It is reserved for the support of neurodivergent youth programs and Summer's future. There is no line item for parents who traded their daughter for peace and quiet." "Summer, please," my mother sobbed. "We love you." "No, you don't," I said calmly. I looked at the woman who had once shaken me until my teeth rattled because I saw ink birds in the sky. "The girl you're looking for is gone," I said. "She was replaced a long time ago. by a version of herself that doesn't need you. You wanted a normal life without me. You have it. Please enjoy it. I closed the door. No stories. No metaphors. It was just a door. And on my side of it, it was warm. Chapter 7. The Final Narrative. That night, Peter and I sat on the roof of Roy's house, looking at the stars. "What are you seeing?" he asked. It was his favorite question. "I see a vast, dark ocean," I said softly. "Every star is a lighthouse. But they aren't warning ships away from the rocks. They're signaling that the water is safe, that we can swim as far as we want." Peter leaned over and kissed my forehead. "That sounds exhausting." "Not necessarily," I laughed, leaning my head on his shoulder. "As long as I'm swimming with you, I know I'll never drown." I was Summer Fields. My brain was a storm of color, my heart was a fortress of logic, and for the first time in my life, the story was exactly where it was supposed to be. Finished. And perfectly, beautifully real. The end.
If you enjoyed this quick escape, hit the subscribe button for new stories twice a week. Until then, I'll see you at the next flip of the pages.